more just about that early board. So I test something a little better that Chakki might go for. Maybe a coin totem golem, something along those lines that the Rockbiter could answer.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If there was some kind of thing from below in his hand there, then maybe toteming would have been more tempting, but he did not have it. And here, this looks like a fairly straightforward Feral Spirits.
So what do you think of the 4-mana 7/7?
4-mana 7/7. A lot of people sometimes get frustrated with that card, because it is certainly a powerful card that comes out early, but it does have its downsides. Like we see here that PNC is holding a Hex, and when that 7/7 gets hexed, it doesn't just give you a drawback where you paid 1 more mana for it, where like 4 mana for it, and your opponent paid 3 mana for the Hex, but it also overloads, and it can be a huge tempo loss.
Sorry for the confusion. I was talking about the Eerie statue. Oh, my bad. My fault. I should have specified which 4-mana 7/7 I was implying. But yeah, all your points are correct. All your points are correct.
Chakki here, looking at those Feral Spirits. He's going to just go for the Flame Breather Faceless here, and I think that's a solid choice, because PNC does have that overload, so Hex will not punish him just yet for it.
Yeah, he's going to get some value out of it, and what this also does is Chakki's going to be overloaded, but he will still be able to play the Nerubian Prophet going into the beginning of next turn, which is a pretty big deal, being able to play a 2-mana 4/4 without overload. So that's better than Totem Golem. That's one of the best plays you can follow up with the Flame Wreath Faceless.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to watch Shaman players go at it, on how they manage the overload, because it is so important to not just look at what's the best play for this turn, but also to think about the next turn. Like, what do I do? How much mana am I going to have on next turn? What cards could I potentially play? And even longer term. And here, PNC getting some overload there, but the Thunderpluff Valiant, not something that he needs to play on turn 5, since the Hex seems like a very good solution to the 7/7.
Yeah. But the thing about this for Chakki is, even though he's able to, sort of cheat out these minions early on with the Nerubian Prophet and the Flame Wreath Faceless, he still doesn't have a really good control over the board, and he hasn't managed to do any damage to PNC. And of course, we talked about it earlier, the mid-range Shaman has all of these tools to deal with their aggressive Shaman's pushes. They have Hexes to deal with the big minions, they have AoE spells, they can make their totems more valuable with Thunderbolt Valiant, and of course, Thing from Below. So I don't know if Chakki's going to be able to close this one out.
Yeah, I have to say that Nerubian Prophet, while it is a 4/4 for 2 mana in this situation, I think the real, the biggest thing that you can do about it, the best way to use that card is with the Master of Evolution, and it was not used here, and it's just going to get easily traded for. PNC definitely the one with the upper hand right now.
Yep. And that's pretty much all of Chakki's momentum stopped.
Yep.
And PNC is actually the one who's sort of has the initiative. He's the one that's sort of piling on this damage. Chakki can take this opportunity to develop Doomhammer, but if you're developing Doomhammer, overloading yourself and not developing any minions, that sort of gives your opponent a free pass to basically develop whatever they want.
Yeah, the Doomhammer does seem a little bit awkward here, but it might still be the strongest play that he has available to him. He could also Feral Spirits and Flame Juggler. He could play the Horse Rider and Flame Juggler. I would be surprised if he went for something like Hero Power here, so we're probably not going to see that. We saw him hover over the Horse Rider, and getting those 2 minions, removing the Feral Spirit off the board, doesn't seem too bad.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing here is making sure that he plans ahead. He tries to take the biggest control of the board, but also make sure that he has openings for his future turns. If he Doomhammers this turn, he goes into the next turn with 4 mana.
Oh, he's hesitating. He might be going for the Hero Power because of how poorly the Flame Juggler would trade for that. But I'm still a tiny bit surprised, because he is kind of falling behind here, so getting an extra 2/3 instead of a 0/2 might have been valuable.
Yeah. Primal Fusion drawn into the hand of PNC. An interesting card that I think a lot of players and personalities at the beginning of Whispers of the Old Gods sort of undervalued. A lot of players sort of said, Primal Fusion, it's cool but won't be used. And that was like most of the card reviews. It just swept it to the side. What have been your thoughts on this card now that we've seen it used in like Zixo's deck list and more mid-range Shaman deck lists?
I think it is quite good, and PNC is choosing to run one of a kind of that card in his deck, and that's certainly something that I personally would also lean towards, because while it can be powerful, like here we see it's going to be +3/+3 for 1 mana. If you have 2 of those in your deck and you draw them in your early hand and you fall behind on the board, it can be very hard to use efficiently.
Yeah. It's very true. There are some situations like the one that we're in now where, you know, you have one extra mana, you basically just throw it on the board and it becomes +3/+3 for a single point of mana. And this means that next turn, PNC can Thunderbluff Valiant and Hero Power, which buffs up, you know, his entire board. That Mana Tide totem will become a 5/6 if that's the case next turn, which is incredibly scary.
It's not gonna stick around though. Chakki has that spell power totem, which is going to be key here in being able to remove the Mana Tide with that Lava Burst. So there it goes, and that was a good pickup from the top as well, getting that tunnel draw. Very efficient. In this situation, it's effectively a 1 mana 3/3 with potential to get even bigger.
Yeah, but I mean, is that even going to be enough? Chakki will be going up against bigger minions, still has not put a single point of damage onto PNC, and, the highest cost minion that Chakki has in his deck is the Nerubian Prophet, and that's, you know, not a real 6-drop.
No, this is going to be so hard for Chakki here. PNC is looking at exactly the cards that he wants to have in this situation too. All 3 of those are very powerful, and going forward, like, it's just, they are better than the Feral Spirits are. Not in the mid game, but we are in the late stages of the game. And here Thunderbluff Valiant, going for the Hero Power, would let him kill the Tunnel Choke and the Spell Power Totem. He could also go for the Fire Elemental if he wants to remove the Flame Juggler.
Yeah. Both of these players' lineups are some of the rare lineups that choose not to ban Shaman, at least from what we've seen from the Europe preliminary. And I think Chakki going into this matchup might have realized that the mid-range Shaman would have been one that he was going to have trouble winning regardless of what deck he matched up against at first.
Yeah, that's quite possible. But it does often come down to also in mirror matches in general. It does come down to who gets like a better start in a way, because of how many of the same cards there are, how they line up against each other. It can be a bigger deal in mirror matches than it is in matches where both players are playing different classes.
Yeah, and you can see PNC actually looks very stressed, despite seemingly having a lead in this series. Being up against an aggro shaman, I guess, can just be a stressful experience regardless, because you just don't know how much burst potential they're packing in their hand.
Yeah, but I mean, being at 28 HP, I wouldn't be too stressed right now. Also, 3 cards in his hand. The Totem Golem, maybe not exactly the best pickup, but still quite solid. And here, Thunderbluff Valiant, the only decision is if he wants to Hero Power or play the Totem Golem, but I think you want to go for the value since the game is so late. Yeah, just use the Hero Power. Taunt Totem would be alright. The Searing Totem also not bad.
Yeah,
any of Totem would be just fine.
Yeah. He might be thinking that maybe he wants to put the Totem Golem on the board to apply more pressure early, but as it stands right now, Chakki's going to be on a 2-turn clock regardless.
I'm gonna be honest, I think it might have been better to hold on to that, because next turn with 9 mana he could have played the Thunderbluff Valiant, he could have played the Totem Golem and Hero Power. Now he missed out on a free totem, so to say. But this does set up almost lethal, so, or is it even lethal setup? If there were no taunts, because it would be how much damage? Because he could play the second Valiant.
I think it's
Hero
16.
Power, so it would be 7. It would be 16. Yeah, you're correct. So maybe with a lightning bolt from the top, that would seal the deal.
Yeah, a lightning bolt or maybe the Rockbiter weapon.
Yeah, so he does play 2 of those as well.
There's a few outs.
Chakki is going to taunt up, so the game is not over just yet. Using the Doom Hammer on the Totem Golem just to remove it. Takes 6 damage doing so, but he definitely has to do it. You can't leave that up.
Yeah, you need to sort of ride these Feral Spirits as far as you can and hope for the best out. And I think Chakki sort of sees the writing on the wall here and realized that this match is not going to go in his favor. But he's playing it out to the end. You never know. Master of Evolution can do some crazy things. I really don't think there's too many opportunities for him to mount a comeback, but he's just going to stay in it regardless.
Yeah, this has to be a good draw right now. Not what he was looking for, that's for sure. Yeah, Master of Evolution. Is there any card, DJ?
No. He can get a sparring partner.
The Bluegill Warrior?
Oh, a Doomsayer! Oh,
that's
man.
so good. Bluegill Warrior would have bought him another turn, because he would have gotten the 2-1 charger that he could have used to like remove the taunt, then trade the Tunnel Drog for the Fire Elemental. So then there only would have been like 7 power on the board. But
yeah.
Oh, actually, it's going to be still 1-off if he gets or when he trades.
Yeah, the funny thing is, if Chakki had gone with that play slightly earlier, he might have had a little bit of a chance if that was Doomsayer, but can't really expect that.
Taunt Totem would have been huge.
Yeah.
This would have given the Doomsayer a chance to go off.
Yeah. But with that, it looks like...
So many cards he can draw, and that's one of them, so...
All
PNC going to take the first game of this series.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you know, these mirror matches tend to be a little bit more snowballing, but I think mid-range Shaman has just a decent matchup in general against that. Also, he ended up going first, and a lot of times going first sort of dictates you get to drop your threats first in that matchup. So it goes PNC's way, and he's going to take a pretty nice win against Chakki.
Definitely, the Shaman mirror is a big one. Even though that Shaman was likely to find a win at some point against Chakki's lineup, getting the first one, it also, not only do you get the 1-0 lead, but it's a boost for confidence. He might be a little bit like nervous playing on the stream and all that stuff. You really don't want to make mistakes when there's so many people watching.
Yeah, and sort of the opposite thing is happening now with the Americas prelim as opposed to Europe. We've seen a lot of sort of these big names fall in the first round. We saw VLPS, we saw Dog fall in the first round. We saw Tides of Time as well, even though he was up against a known player in Fibonacci. Probably doesn't bode well for Chakki going into this. PNC, though, he's a player from Argentina. He has had a few top 100 legend finishes on the Americas server, so he is definitely no pushover. He's been around sort of the competitive, or at least the online competitive scene for quite a while. Yeah,
this is a good time for him to potentially be making a name out of himself, taking Chakki down on the first round here, maybe 3-0. That would be huge for him going forward.
Yeah, we see his decks remaining there. He has Rogue and Hunter left. And I know firsthand after talking with Chakki and sort of that practice group that created this lineup, this hyper-aggressive lineup, one of the decks they were targeting heavily was Rogue. They figured a lot of people would bring Rogue. Rogue struggles when it's pressured heavily in the early game, and that's exactly what all the decks that they brought do. So maybe Chakki's still feeling comfortable despite dropping that first game.
Well, that's certainly good news for Chakki, that there is a Rogue in PNC's lineup in that case, because he could maybe get those 3 wins against that then. Because it does happen quite often in the Conquest format, where your entire lineup can be very strong against the deck in particular, and PNC not gonna go for the Rogue just yet, and we are instead going to see this mid-range Hunter. How do you feel about the mid-range Hunter, DJ?
I love the mid-range Hunter. I actually played mid-range Hunter last night for about 5 hours and climbed from 550 legend to like top 100. And it felt like, you know, I was doing other things while I was playing it. So it's really strong. I really like the list with Doomsayers that Mr. Yugut was running a few weeks ago when he broke into the top 10 legend. On the Europe servers, but PNC is not running that version. Instead, he's running Flame Jugglers as that sort of third 2-drop as opposed to the Doomsayer.
Yeah, the battle cry sometimes, if you can take out your opponent's 1-drop with it, it can be huge and give you such a big tempo advantage early on.
Yeah, and Chakki is playing Pirate Warrior. It may not seem like it from this opening hand, but we did see some of the Pirates. It's basically just an aggressive version of Warrior. A lot of players have realized that this is the sort of version of Face Warrior that has sort of survived all the standard and Whispers of the Old Gods changes because of the added pirate cards that have been included in the set.
Yeah, the Pirate Warrior is one of those decks that I personally really hate playing against, for the reason that my playstyle tends to favor slower decks, and the Pirate Warrior has a lot of early power, so it kind of punishes the slow control style of playstyle.
Yeah, the thing is though, what Midrange Hunter has become is basically a deck that just curves. It just curves out really well. If their curve is interrupted, it's really weak. But if their curve is interrupted, it's super strong. You know, they have lots of 2-drops into Animal Companion, into Infested Wolf, into Stampede Kodo or Stranglethorn, into High Mane, into Call of the Wild. Like that's what they do. And if that is uninterrupted, they will beat you a lot. And Chakki's opening hand is not the best, and that's something that Pirate Warrior suffers from.
And PNC's hand is certainly quite strong. I mean, what more can you even hope for? He had 2-drops, or kind of 3 if we count that Freezing Trap as well. He has an Animal Companion or Bow for 3. He can choose whichever fits the best, and Infested Wolf for 4 if he wants to play it early on.
Yeah.
Certainly strong one, but Chakki does have a good answer to that King's LX for now.
Yeah. I think about Pirate Warrior also, though, is even when it has rough starts, they can do a lot of burst damage.
Oh, yeah, and like with the Arcanite Reaper upgrade, it's a lot of sustained damage as well going into turns 6 and 7 and so on.
Yeah, if you know, just in his hand, Arcanite Reaper plus Heroic Strike alone, that's 14 damage over the course of 2 turns. So, you know, the damage that you deal early on, especially against Hunter, which they don't run comeback mechanics, aside from Unleash the Hounds, which is usually a one-of in a lot of mid-range Hunter decks, and they don't run any type of healing. The only type of damage that, or cards that they have that can block damage are Houndmaster and maybe Call of the Wild with Misha or Animal Companion with Misha, but that's it.
Yeah, PNC facing an extremely difficult decision here. I kind of don't like the Flame Juggler here because of the potential Flame Juggler quick shot for next turn. If Chakki plays another minion to quick shot, he could go for Animal Companion, but if he gets a Hopper, that's going to be a disaster for him. Getting Leok, getting Misha would work out a tiny bit better than the Bow, I think, but Bow would be the safe play. Which one does he get? Oh, he gets a Leok. That's a mid ground right there. Because Hopper was not the one he wanted. Misha would have been the best one, but that's fair.
Yeah. This does match up nicely into the Korkon Elite for Chakki, though.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, as PNC, you sort of have to go into a position where you have to take risks sometimes, especially in this matchup where if you give up the board at any point, if you miss at any point, then the Pirate Warrior can sort of run away with the game because they get damage on the board.
Uh-oh! Double Flame Jugglers. Where are the juggles gonna go? Do they take out the minions or do they go for face? First minion is down. But will the second one go down? Oh, you can see it on PNC's face too.
He's like, this is what my life has become!
Oh, it goes face!
Well, he hit one of them. So, you know,
it's kind of fair.
That's better than both of them going face.
It's true.
But this is the situation you were talking about. Chakki has Arcanite Reaper and Upgrade. And, you know, even though a lot of players will say, oh, you know, face decks are so mindless. You just equip all your damage and you just point it at the face. But the thing is, knowing when you have to change from board control to face damage is actually quite a tough thing to master in Hearthstone.
Definitely. You need to know your spots, and here Chakki recognizes that Heroic Strike upgrade. It should add up to being enough to just finish the game with those, and maybe another card from the top.
What? He has a Rusty Hook on his hand. He just scratched his head with a Rusty Hook.
Okay.
Chakki did. Okay.
Wow, that's
I swear I'm not seeing things. I'm not going crazy, Savitz. Just
all right, I'll believe you.
Fix your eyes on Chakki's webcam and just wait.
All right.
I'll cast a match. Don't worry.
Some role playing going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. Chakki and the gang that actually made this Pirate Warrior deck actually tweeted out a picture of them dressed up as pirates this morning.
Oh,
so,
yeah, I saw that.
Top tier role play. For these guys that brought the Pirate Warrior decks.
Yeah, if they all go down very early, it's gonna look a little bit goofy, but now things are looking
quite
nice.
Embarrassing, yeah.
But right now things are going Chakki's way. He's definitely the one who's in charge of this game so far. Dread Corsair, pretty good, I would say. It's a 0-mana minion, can play the Frothing, can play the upgrade. Bloodsail Corsair seems good.
Seems good. Yeah, and this is quite a big tempo play here. But the thing is, PNC does have some ways to stop this damage.
Yep.
But the way he stops the damage is by not developing minions on that turn, which means that gives Chakki more turns to draw into all of this damage. So can he clear the board?
Yes, he
and
can.
Dodge burn spells from Chakki.
Actually, I'm not. Let's evaluate. How good is that? The quick shot was already enough to get a full clear on the board, but that Unleash the Hounds might be better than the Bow. High main certainly not an option, because then that would mean that either the Bloodsail Corsair or the Frothing Berserker would stay on the board and probably be lethal. So the quick shot is happening, I would say. Unleash the Hounds. Yeah, I mean, 3 is probably the best you're gonna get with it, right?
Yeah, and 4 damage is what you're trying to avoid because you haven't seen a Mortal Strike and you haven't seen a Heroic Strike, and those are both spells that deal 4 damage. So if you take 3 damage with the Bow and leave Chakki with a 6 damage Arcanite Reaper, you're in a position where you're pretty likely to die the next turn, given Chakki has one of those 4 burn spells in his hand. So I really like the Unleash the Hounds as opposed to it.
Absolutely. The more I think about it, the more obvious it seems. Because those wolves are going to be, or hounds, those hounds are going to be around until the end, because there are no AoE effects in the warrior deck.
Yeah.
And if he chose to play the bow instead, that would only give him 1 extra attack.
Yeah. And something I want to point out there with PNC's sequencing is he sequenced that incredibly well. He made sure that
no,
he
actually.
Oh, not the end. Not the end. The first part. The fiery bat attacking in when he had 3 creatures on the board.
And there's a Corkron lead.
Okay. That's going to be game, and that's going to be Chakki taking the series. And yeah, PNC sort of said, you know, TJ, you're wrong, as soon as I decided to say that statement there at the end. The fiery bat sequencing was great, but there's Chakki with his rusty hook.
Now I believe you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going crazy. Yar.
Yeah, that was very convincing from Chakki right there. Even if he didn't draw the lethal damage yet on that turn, I believe he would have had multiple turns to